Here in Key West, we were out before it was in. In this open and inclusive paradise, you can be yourself, make new friends, and savor our live and let live vibe. With LGBTQ+ friendly accommodations, our legendary nightlife, and year-round activities and events, it's always a good time to come as you are. Key West, close to perfect, far from normal.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21+. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
Some things never cease to amaze me. Sunrises, hitting a golf ball straight, and the overwhelming ignorance of the common person. Here's a thought. Use Form Bs to determine classification. This, in fact, is competitive balance. Season 8 of Sun Coaches Podcast, where not everyone is funny or tells funny stories, but everyone has a story. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 8, and as always, on Sunday evenings, I'm joined by Coach Ed Gaffca, the Executive Director of the Fire Football Coaches Association. Coach, thanks for being on with me.
I appreciate it as always. After the last few days, I think it's very fitting that we have the opportunity to connect and go over the comings and goings and the hot topics that have come up in the last week.
Yeah, a lot of times I worry or get concerned in the off season with our format of what you and I do is we may run out of things to talk about. But due to your outstanding articles that you put out every week, at least one a week, I think you got 2 or 3 fired off last week. One of them I couldn't agree with more. Everything that was said, and again, it's not to poo-poo on people that took jobs that don't do this, but it was just casual observations that you've made. And the title of your article was 5 Undeniable Traits of Losing High School Football Programs. And there are always outliers. There's always people that go in and they're able to rub some crack magic on a situation and catch lightning in a bottle and get the right athletes in. And I think that was the only thing. I think you did a great job with the article because it's easy to say, number one, you got to have better players. But you addressed all of the things that are the extra things that go into running a program. And this could have very well been high school basketball programs, high school baseball programs, any high school athletic program. You need these 5 things to be right for you to have success, unless you just have better athletes than everybody else. So we're going to address each one of these one by one, and I'll let you go through them, and then I'll react, and we'll segue into the next segment. How's that sound, Doctor?
That sounds great. Yeah, I mean, obviously, doing the long form articles, it's somewhat of a form of therapy for me at times where, you know, something just strikes you and you want to have an opportunity to just kind of write it out. And, when I got to talking with, some coaches over the last couple of weeks, the same kind of things got brought up about certain jobs and everything. And really what kind of torpedoed this forward was a conversation that I had about the weight room. And that's the first point in, why these are 5 undeniable traits of losing high school football programs. And that first point is you can't get all the players in the same weight training class. Now, I understand that every school system is different and every size of school is different and things of that nature. Bigger schools that I've been at, we've been able to have kids, upcoming freshmen, they're in, first period or first block. And then we have our upperclassmen in, our fourth block. And then, in smaller programs I've been a part of, we've gotten every kid in there, in one period or the other. Sometimes it's a lot easier said than done. And ultimately, this isn't about, you know, trying to do something that's wild or illegal or anything of that nature. What this is showing the commitment and showing in the weight room, and that's across every single sport. I have an issue when you're at a place that basically it's helter skelter, right? You've got co-ed, you've got a bunch of civilians, in between the racks. You have no rhyme or reason, and they put 60, 70 kids in that weight training class that, you know, again, how many other classes have 60 or 70 kids in them that you got to manage with weights, with dangerous equipment at times? You know, the reality that I see when it comes to that that area is you have administration, you have counseling, you have everybody who, the registrar, everybody who needs to understand this is a period that's devoted for football weights. This period is devoted to an all girls weight training. This one is devoted to a mix and match of others. This one is devoted to, another sport focused or whatever you want to do it. You've got enough periods to make it accessible. Anybody who says they can't do it, it's lazy. It is the definition of lazy. And I realize there's people that are like, they've been at places and they're like, well, I never could get any of my kids in the weight room. And, we made best with what we had. Well, no shit. That's what you're hired to do. That's not the point. The point is, wouldn't it be a lot easier if they made that a helpful thing for you to have? Sure, we can require a zero period and kids come in at 6:30 in the morning. But how many times do you have 100% attendance? How many times do you have issues just with that piece alone? How about we take that away from being a additional thing, or like I mentioned in last week's article, the other assigned duties, like I'm now having to teach another additional period before my day starts for the team that I coach for not making that much money towards. I mean, what are we talking about here? Of course, you're going to do everything you can to help your team and get them all in the same group. You just need to have the other help from the other people around the program, and that's the genesis of it all, right? It's not the X's and O's or the Jimmys and Joes. It's all the stuff that you can't control. It's the stuff that affects all of the other football related stuff from the outside, from the administration, community, all of it. That is what this list is about. It has nothing to do about the quality of kids you have or your football IQ. It has everything to do about the stuff that is out of your control, that when it's in a cluster or led by complete dumbassery, it makes your job that much harder, and really it should. So that's number 1.
Number one, um, and when I was head coach, we couldn't get them in weight training. I had 120 kids, had 2 of them in a weight training class, 2. And we figured it out because, like you said, that's part of what you get paid to do. And I've been a lot of places. I got a lot of the T-shirts and running joke. I've been just about everywhere, man. And I've seen it done properly. I've seen it done improperly. I've been told it can't be done. I've been told it's impossible to be done. And even where I'm at now, where it's taken care of, we still have a couple of kids that their schedule doesn't allow them to be in the class with everyone else because they're either taking college-based learning or they're doing a work study, and that's fine. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the general majority of your athletes being in there, and it all comes down to doing what is best for the student athlete. Okay, it's not just let's get them all into this. And I saw the arguments, I saw all the pushback, but the number one thing is if you can't get them all in weight training, where you instill discipline, camaraderie, teamwork, helping your brother out or your sister out. Because I've been places where, I mean, let's look, for instance, I was at Villa Rica in the mid to late early 2000s, mid 2000s. They did it wonderfully. They had civilian weight training was first period. Second period was JV athletics. Third period was another civilian weight training class. Fourth period was all girls weight training for all the female athletes. There was no fifth period because it had lunch, and then sixth period was varsity weight training. It's not hard. They can do what they want to do. And that's the bottom line with that. So With that being said, step thing number 2, second point you had on there was that the head coach can't build his staff. At unsuccessful programs, the head coach can't build his staff. Now, I'll go off on this first because nothing tickles me more than seeing guys looking for coaches every year and they say our administration is committed to winning and we're committed to be successful and they're committed to, and they're very supportive, and this is what I have open: Latin and advanced physics. If you don't have some histories, some sped, and some PE classes, most people that went to college to teach, they wanted to teach something that they were interested in. And I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that are excellent coaches that teach other things. I'm certified in 5 different areas. I can teach AP calculus, I can teach physics, I can teach English, I can teach. I'm a special ed co-teacher, and I'm certified in health and physical education as well, K through 12 or P through 12, whatever the certificate says. Got all the advanced degrees, every last one of them. But not being able to build your staff is not just about bringing in who you want that are good people that are going to jive with what you're doing, but
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Victory Lane? Yeah, it's even better with Chumba by my side. Race to ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
It's also includes getting the slots that you need to match up somewhere in the county. Somewhere. I don't even have to all be in the same building sometimes. Just get me guys in here that are on the same page. So your second point, Coach, was the head coach can't build his staff. And go.
Yeah, and so basically, you hit the nail on the head. Ultimately, if it's hard, now one of the telltale signs if you've been at a place for 3, 4, 5 years, and it's become even harder and harder for you to get guys on staff. You've noticed your increase in community coaches has increased over that time as well. And maybe you interview somebody in December or January, you even have them interview with the AD and principal, and they are all on board with them. But they drag their feet until March, April to be able to say, yeah, we can hire them. Guys, they are actively, that's your number one red flag warning sign that they're going to try to fire you after the next season. They're getting to the point to where that's what they're going to try to do. Now, again, if you're just going into the job and you didn't already have the discussion with them prior about how many coaches you can bring, and then when you sign your name to that dotted line and agree, and then you say, "Well, I need to bring 6 guys for me," and they say, "Well, we only got space for 2," and that's kinda on you. You gotta ask that question. You gotta, "How many guys can I bring?" Now, most guys do ask that question, but I have run into a couple that they were just so focused on getting that head job, they forgot to ask a question that really matters. And if you can't bring coaches in that can help carry that message and implement that in the school building as well as on the practice field and the weight room, well, you got a big problem. And so, you know, when you talk about losing programs find ways to not hire coaches. They drag their feet on not hiring coaches. So, not being able to build a staff is a huge, huge problem. Now, from my standpoint, it lumps in to number 3, where it says we don't know what spots will be open. Well, here's the thing, and I know it's going to be hard. If any admin listen to this, I know it's hard to think about, but you are so hell bent on data collection, right? And and being able to justify metrics, justify special education services and tracking, based on data. What's your data driven analysis? That helps you forecast. So every single year, you can almost guarantee at every school system, you're going to be replacing somebody special ed wise, somebody in these different departments. For a fact, based on historical data, not a shot in the dark, historical data, which you can prepare for. You can also get a interest form out in December. You can do some different things. Obviously, those interest forms are not contractual at all, But this is where you being a leader and kind of having some conversations with the people in your building and having your assistant principals really do their jobs. I know wearing the walkie-talkie is damn important now, okay? I'm not taking that away. But aside from standing in the hallway and just being on the walkie-talkies, I need them to know their teachers, know how to communicate with them, see, "Hey, do you think this person's gonna be back or not?" That helps you forecast, and based on a forecast, you can at least tentatively, tell your head football coach, "Hey, this is what we're expecting to come open. If there's a guy that you 100% need, we'll get him in, and we will make something work." Because, guys, if anybody tells you that they can't make something work in education, they're damn liars. Education can literally do whatever they put their mind to when it comes to positions and things of that nature, because why else would we have 300 different provisionals? Why else would we have a bunch of different avenues to create positions for people who are not certified teachers, right? There are so many ways to get people in the door because at the end of the day, you need good people and you need good teachers. So when it comes to, again, it comes down to leadership, right? The best schools I've been at have shown that, you know, they get with the coach in December or January and say, hey, this is what we are forecasting or preparing to have open. Now, that number could increase, decrease, whatever, but this is what we're preparing. Okay. That to me is, a good sign of leadership. What isn't is when they just say, yeah, we're not going to know what's open until we get everything contracts out in late March. Well, shit, get the contracts out earlier then. Fire up the damn printer and let's roll.
Well, and that's something that I've noticed within the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. I don't know if it's teacher shortage that's caused it, but letters of intent have started going out earlier and earlier and earlier. But the contracts don't immediately come out. Now, if I was in a business and I knew I was losing people, I would try to immediately lock up the ones I got with a contract so that they didn't seek employment elsewhere. But as you said, that is a big problem. I agree wholeheartedly with that. There's no excuse in not knowing, being able to forecast that. Now, your fourth point was something that I've never had to deal with other than if it's too hot outside, and that's practice restrictions that cost preparation. Talk about that a little bit, coach.
Well, through talking to a couple coaches in South Georgia and a couple coaches in North Georgia and experiencing up here in North Georgia, you know, just take this for example. You have a teacher work day, right, in August, right? And or you have a half day. You've got a scheduled half day that has some teacher, professional learning bullshit after lunch. Okay. Now, the kids have to leave at that half day, right? Well, several different schools that I've been to and also have spoken to, their admin wouldn't let them have practice right after that half day. Those kids would have to come back until the contract hours were up for those teachers because they had to do the very valuable sit there and listen how to put shit on Canvas, okay, for the hundredth time, or how to start a Google Meet, okay, shit that could be sent in an email, okay. So not only are we putting kids back on the road an additional time, you know, nobody thinks about the kids clearly, but you're also putting your coaches in another tough spot to where, like, hey, it's a half day. We could go ahead and get this stuff knocked out before we hit the heat of the day, which in Georgia is between the hours of 3 and 5 o'clock. That's the hottest point of the day in the state of Georgia. It's not at noon. Noon, it's a damn breeze. We go out there and not break a sweat half the time. But when you get to the other point, now you're getting black flag, you're getting all that other stuff. And I talked with two separate coaches that had it set up to where not only in that scenario were they able to practice before, right after the half day, but on two separate instances because of a storm that was projected, again, forecasted. It was going to be here by 4:30. They weren't supposed to get out of school until 3:30. the administration said, "Hey, y'all need to get that thing in. Why don't y'all we'll let the football team out at 2:15. Does that give you enough time to get it in and get them home safely?" Well, yes, it does. Look at that. Look at that. You know what that is? That right there is leadership that, again, if some dumbass biology teacher wants to say, "Why the hell are they able to leave? Why are they able to do that?" Well, not for nothing, but, you know, they are the reason why those kids, those football players in your class aren't a problem. There's a reason why they're able to do that because they're gonna be here well after you leave and go home and listen to your, Nancy Grace on tape and heat up your microwave dinner, okay? Like, that to me is much more valuable, and it shows that you actually understand the challenges that coaches are going through. So, being able to adjust a schedule to fit that, there's certain programs where, yeah, one of the coaches that I talked to said that in the event that there was something that came up, if there was somebody that had to miss a test or had to do something, those things were addressed with the individual teacher. A plan was made, communicated, and agreed upon. And guess what? That's now showing a kid how to make changes, hold up commitments, and realize what he needs to do to make that up by the deadline. So now the ball's back in the kid's court to show some responsibility and take ownership of his education. When we sit there and, try to babysit every little aspect and not show that, hey, guys, I know you're thinking that we got the storm rolling and we got whatever's happening. Hey, we can make this work for you. You also have school systems that are actively trying to have a athletic period included in the day because we've all been a part of schedules that have that advisement period. Sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes they do a whole hour and a half, for God only knows why, but it's the biggest waste of time in the history of time. There's nothing about that. I mean, you could shorten the school day so much just by that, but here we are having to do that bullshit. So, to me, one of the best aspects of
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Game night's fun until someone spends 5 minutes lining up one shot. Chalk, breathe, rechalk, still aiming. While they figure it out, I fire up Chumba Casino. I can spin anywhere, anytime, and there's always a new social casino game every week. Spins happen way faster than that shot. Play now at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
you know, some of this leadership that I have seen, the good leadership, is they realize that that's not a football athletic period. That is all like you can go and that's an opportunity for you to meet with your team. If you're wondering if there's kids that might not have that same weight training, well, now there's a time for them to have that weight training. There's just so much that is why coaches want to stay at places versus, hey, I'm going to go and take this job where the admin is rolling through 4 or 5 coaches in 4 or 5 years because they have no clue what the struggles are. And to me, I want to be at places that understand that and that can really help me and our staff make our job just take one thing off our plate. If you can do that, I promise you I'll lay down my life for you and go to bat for you and for anybody who critiques it. But when you fight us on everything and are more of that speed bump all the time, well, again, they ask you why we lose. Well, all the shit that takes place outside of the practice field and the game field and the X's and O's and the Jimmys and Joes, that's the shit that adds to our plate to lose.
Absolutely, and there's 2 points that I'll make in regard to this, or two things that I'll say in regards to this. Number 1 is, I don't understand why teachers, coaches, whoever, they don't understand seat time. You need to look into seat time. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up, do your research, and find out how much seat time is actually required in the state of Georgia and how much seat time actually takes place. The numbers are ridiculous. We wonder why kids can't pay attention, don't show up, don't come to school, don't do whatever. Seat time has a lot to do with it. We spend more time with butts in seats in the classroom than any any civilized first world country, second world country on the planet and still have the worst test scores. Maybe we need to look into seat time. That's number 1. Number B, what you just said about working together, communicating, things like that. It is insulting to me as an educator and a coach that people assume that we're saying that athletics above all else be damned. And that's not what we're saying at all. Because if it were not for coaches, most coaches that I know, regardless of the sport, regardless of the gender, they have other academic requirements that sometimes are more taxing on the child than what the school provides. For a lot of us, we're the reason that the kid comes to school. We are the reason that the kid it starts to enjoy school. We are the reason that the child actually participates and becomes a steward of the community and becomes somebody who you want to represent your community and your school system. That becomes a leader in the classroom, a leader in the school. They don't teach leadership skills in the English class or the science class or the math class because they're too busy trying to get Johnny to be able to read and know his times tables. You learn that through extracurricular activities, which athletics are. The final point you made in your article was parental culture. And I could do a whole series of podcasts on this and horror stories. So talk a little bit about parental culture, coach.
Well, I think we all have experienced our nightmare scenarios with parents. Um, a lot of times it's dictated on what kind of culture that you're inheriting, as well as the culture that you're trying to achieve. Because I've been at places where a group of parents are going to be the ones that try to dictate every little thing and can make your life as good or as miserable as possible just based on if you play their son, you know, no matter what, right? And what they believe is that if they spend all the time at the booster club, if they do all this stuff, donate money, whatever it may be, that automatically makes sure that they have a seat at the table with their kid being a starter, whatever it is. Those are losing programs. Now, make no bones about it. You want to cut me a fat check for our program? I promise you, little Johnny's going to be on damn special team now. His name will get called out on Fridays. I will make sure that it is known how appreciative I am. But he ain't a quarterback. We ain't putting his ass out there to where he can embarrass my ass. We still got to win games. But when you have people, parents specifically, that are pulling the strings of an athletic director, pulling the strings of a superintendent or a principal, that makes our job significantly harder. When you have it the other way around, where again, whenever there's parental complaints to the superintendent, to the principal, to the athletic director, you know what they do? They pick up the phone and they call the head football coach, say, "Hey, I got this. How do you want to handle it?" And then again, just tell them my door is always open. If they'd like to schedule a meeting, they can. Whatever. But under no circumstance do you not have a meeting that's regarding the football program without the leader of the football program. Under no circumstance do you have opportunities to basically addition by subtraction. Parents need to be put in their place and know that their number one job is supporting their kid. And by supporting their kid, they're supporting the program. And they're yes, little John's gonna come home upset because he got beat out for something. Instead of saying, well, that coach is an idiot, maybe, just maybe, say, what do you need to do to get better? What do you need to do to get your job back? How can I help you in that? Again, I know that that's easier said than done. We have a lot of very dumbass parents that should not have children, but the Lord bless them with children for some reason or another, decided that bar none, they're going to be, a knee knocking football player that can't even put their girdle on correct. So thank you for that. But we're also going to have situations where, you have my kid comes to everything. My kid comes to everything, and now he's a senior. Senior should play over anybody else. That's just not how it works. It's not how it works at good programs or even mediocre programs. That's how bad programs are. If you want me to guarantee your kid playing time, allow me to have senior night during a non-region game that doesn't ultimately matter in the grand scheme of things, because I can guarantee I can get his ass in that game. But you wanna wait till game 10, last home game where we need it for playoff seeding or whatever it may be, shit, little Johnny's probably gonna be sitting his ass back on the bench again because I ain't putting him in there. So, we gotta get out of that mindset. Winning programs, it's a learned behavior and a learned expectation. If they are not doing that, or if they come in with a different way of thinking, they get put on that right track pretty quickly by understanding that this is how things go and this is the standard by which we operate. And when that's the case, you see programs take another step and another step. And it just becomes a lot cleaner. Now, are there outliers at successful programs? You're damn right there are. But until you get people that understand that not every vacation that you have needs to be scheduled in the fall, whenever this is our fall break, we still have football practice because we have a game. This is like, it's unacceptable that more bad programs have parents who are just so dense in the head they don't understand how the schedule works, and then are surprised that when they get back in town, little Johnny's not going to be on the dress list because he just missed 4 practices. Because that's not fair to the other kids that do show up. It's not fair to everybody else who didn't have selfish ass parents. Go to Disney any other time, but during football season, it's football practice. It's called priorities. Teach your kids about priorities. So, that's kind of that last point. All 5 of those to me, though, are the undeniable traits that basically, in some degree, losing programs have. Not every single time are they gonna have all 5, or I think one will probably be higher than the other, they're gonna vary in the severity, but I guarantee you all 5 of those will be present in programs that are perennial losers, the perennial, "We're getting scheduled for everybody's homecoming" type programs.
Well, there ain't no doubt. I mean, one of the reasons I'm not a head coach anymore is because of parents and my inability to deal with them in a way that I guess is a better way to deal with them. I tell them I used to have meetings with them at the beginning of the season so we could knock out a lot of the nonsense at the beginning, and I'd tell them, you have 2 jobs, raise money and support your child. If you can't do those 2 things, there's really nothing for us to talk about. Now, the point on what you said about the senior night, I saw a Twitter post, somebody raising Cain about, if you're not going to play them on senior night, then why didn't you cut them in the first place? These are the exact same parents. If you cut them their senior year, they're going to be up at the board office raising Cain or up there talking to administrators. Not going to come talk to you. They're going to skip all of that. They're going to go straight to the board office and want to know why you cut their child. But in the same respect, they're going to get mad because you didn't play them on senior night. Well, they're not the better player. This isn't a everybody gets to play. This isn't pay to play. If you want, and I used to say this all the time, and I'll still say it. It doesn't bother me a bit. If you want your child to never leave the field, you can pay me $10,000. So if the parents are sitting out there and they see a child that never comes off the field that everybody knows ain't got no business being on the field, they know what happened. They know what happened. And they'll probably see some nicer things around my house too. But if that's what you want to do, then that's what we're going to do. If you want it to be a pay to play mentality, then you're going to have to pay to play. That's just the bottom line. This is not a rec ball situation where you pay for whatever. And all of that sums up your article. I thought it was a great article. Like you said, it's not indicative of every place that loses because ultimately, let's be honest, you got to have players. That team which has the best players normally wins the most games. And coaches just have to stay out of the way and don't screw it up a lot of times. Can you develop them? Yes. Can you make them a little bit better? Yes. But are you out there playing for them? No. Players have to make plays, and the best players make the best plays. And that's just the way it is. It's high school athletics. It's extracurricular. They don't have to do it. They can volunteer to do it. And something else that I found amazing that we're going to get into as we segue into this next segment is how much of a reaction that was gotten off of your article, and the somebody just raised their hand and said, "Hey, I'm that administrator." They've just decided to completely show exactly what we're talking about, coach.
Yeah. Now, again, I typically have a rule when it comes to anybody that you can openly critique anything I put out there. It's not going to offend me. It's not going to move that needle. But I do give you at least one. I give you one time of saying something, right? But then if you want to continue to chirp at my mentions and chirp at other things, well, like I say, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I don't believe this this gal thought that I would respond, and in an effort to do so in what I felt to be the most intentional and point by point way, I made sure to make an article, a rebuttal article that really I did not have any plans on writing. Typically, I try to keep it to 2, maybe 3 total articles a week just because, that's just kinda how I operate. But I titled it "When Leadership Calls Athletics a Waste, and This Is Our Response." Now, understand this. This gal got so upset when she finally figured out that I wrote about it because she didn't like that I mischaracterized her opinion. Well, here's the reality. She wrote, "I know I'm going to get it for this post, but so be it. Proposed new article title, 5 reasons why public schools need to drop all athletics and get back to learning." Now, I realize that I'm just the humble executive director of the Fire Football Coaches. But if we were to just take it at face value, would you not say removing a program, all athletics, would be referring to it as waste? Because any resources that you do spend on it would conceivably be a waste in your opinion. So maybe I chose the wrong phrasing, but based on that idol that you sent and quoted and tried to, again, like you said, you knew you were going to get it for the post. So you're surprising that anybody's come after you. Again, it's either the most dense individual that has ever graced this great land that we live, or it's satire. I don't think it's satire though, because I do think you have to at least have 2 brain cells to rub together to adequately, put something out that, you don't continuously put your foot in your mouth. But here we are. So, not only that, but then I went back 2 posts prior, and this gal said, "If you think about it, most secondary public school sports are the most inequitable use of taxpayer money. Our only select students get access to sports, and yet millions are spent on them. So technically, a multi-sport star athlete gets ton of public school dollars spent on them, but the kid who loves the same sports but isn't as talented, whose parents pay the same tax rates, gets 0 athletic services." Here's the thing. I think this is somebody who, quite frankly, doesn't know taxes and doesn't understand that taxes are, especially school taxes, are under a big old umbrella. Nothing is a line item for athletics, for the tax budget. When you get your tax bill every single year, and every single one of us should have already gotten ours for this year, is it line item breakdown exactly how that money is dispersed? No, it's not, because it also doesn't include any federal or state funding that's also included. It doesn't include the booster club donations. It doesn't include any funds raised for any of it. So the implication that this woman has is so misguided and is so off base that, again, she never lets facts get in the way of her opinion. And it is a talent that only few have.
Well, what I like about the whole thing is that the person in question doesn't understand what pays for what in a school system and claims to have been an educator for 38 years and all such stuff. Oh, by the way, due to our inordinate amount of resources, we know exactly who this person is. And they're exactly one of the administrators that we talk about all the time of what can make your job bad. But the other thing, this isn't if the premise is true that all this tax money goes to paying towards athletics, the people of Gwinnett County that have had to pay to put up lights and everything else that they've had to pay for and buildings for their athletic facilities, they should be extremely pissed off. They should have some people that's got to answer some questions because they over the years, the people, the good taxpayers of Gwinnett County, they're getting hit twice, according to her. That the tax money ain't going to pay for anything, and then they're having to foot the bill on the facilities. So I started out. I did respond, but then I remembered the old, never argue with an idiot. They'll lower you to their level and beat you with experience. So I backed off. With that being said, there's no telling what's going to come down the pike this week. Uh, I don't know what you plan on doing this week as far as articles go. We had a couple of jobs that were filled or somewhat filled. Going forward, there's still a couple of more that they're still working on. But, Coach, what you got going on this week?
Yeah, nothing terribly extensive this week, but those are typically the weeks that stuff pop the most in terms of, things that ends up taking up attention. Still working on a couple bigger projects, and once those are ready, those will be put out. But ultimately, it's going to be geared towards, um, you know, answering any direct message nonsense from people who think that or take the opinion that I'm somebody that has a low IQ opinion, which, hey, maybe they're right. I'm not always right, and I don't claim to be. But my opinion is just as valuable as your opinion, which is to say everybody's got an opinion. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It just means, in my opinions, can I back that stuff up with you know, what I believe to be, facts, of course. And I'll listen to anybody's opinion even if it's different. And you might sway my opinion. I'm open to all critique. But, my hope is that through all of this, people understand that there are better ways of doing it and just banging your head against the wall, saying this is how we've always done it, so this is what we have to continue to do. I think that is the mistake that we continue to make. But yeah, I'm excited for the week ahead, and I know a lot of people are out of school or teach workday tomorrow, and my hope is that everybody comes back refreshed and ready to go. And you're getting closer to the glorious spring football season coming up, so you should see some more additional jobs close, or at least begin that process. Monticello will or Jasper County Monticello, we're going to rebrand that shit. So don't have to keep saying the two answers, but they should make calls this week to set up some initial interviews. Just from the basics that I have heard, I think that Chattahoochee, I think is close to making a hire, but I think it's an inside guy, if I'm not mistaken. Don't know that to be certain. And ultimately, and next week, Coach, remind me to share with you some you know some of the best DMs I've gotten about administrative horror stories. I'm looking forward to sharing those with you because it'll make you just honestly probably throw up. It's that some of these are so bad that you're really gonna question how any of these people had jobs in the first place.
Well, I question that a lot. Anyway, it's the screw up, move up thing. But we got the Glazier Atlanta Clinic this weekend. We like to encourage everybody to check out the Coach and Share thing that Coach talks about on his site all the time. He makes sure to give them a good shout out. Also, like to encourage everyone that hasn't jumped on board yet is get with the Matchup USA for any of your scheduling issues. As always, we thank you guys for listening to the Sun Coaches Podcast, and remind you after this episode every time to relax. It's just satire.
Hey, it's Cole Swindell. After I give everything I've got to land a perfect vocal, I usually take 5 before jumping into the next track. And I've learned exactly how to recharge in that time. Some folks grab coffee. I hit a quick good luck spin. Next thing you know, the break is just as fun as laying down the track. A better break makes for a better take. Need a break? Let's chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus TNC supply. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.